Now moving on to our next section and the last one in this topic, that is the femoral head fractures along with the anterior hip dislocation. We will be discussing the mechanism of both the anterior hip dislocation as well as the femoral head fractures, both the clinical features, their imaging and management along with the treatment. The femoral head fractures, as I told you, the dislocation could be simple, it's not associated with femoral head fractures, but it could be complex, associated with femoral head, neck, or even the shaft or acetabulum fractures as well. Usually associated with dislocation or subluxation of the femoral head may have a spontaneously reduced into the acetabulum. Majority of the femoral head fractures are usually in the posterior hip dislocation. Now again, this is an x-ray, and then the Chantal line is actually very much appreciated over here. If you see this, the Chantal line appears very much intact, but on this the Chantal line is broken. That means the problem is most likely on the right side. Now if you see, it doesn't really looks like a complex dislocation, but if you look closely, there may be a small fracture of the femoral head which may be present or which may not be present. Whenever there is a suspicion, one must get a CT scan to evaluate for the femoral head or associated neck fractures as well. Acetabular, femoral shaft and femoral neck fractures are usually associated with dislocation, and with the femoral head fractures there may be associated ligamentous injuries and sciatic nerve injuries as well. There is a classification for femoral head fractures called as the Kripken classification. As you can appreciate, this is the femur head. This type 1, the fracture line is actually inferior to the fovea capitis, which is actually lying over here, and it is actually in the non-weight bearing area, so it's not much of a problem when this kind of things happen. In type 2, fracture fragment actually includes the fovea, and the fracture line goes superior to the fovea capitis. The problem is, now this part of the femur head is actually the weight bearing area. So the type 2 fracture involves the weight bearing area above the fovea capitis. Type 3 is actually, it could be either below or above, associated with the femur neck fracture. Once there is a femur neck fracture, it actually increases the intensity and severity of the problem. It could be either with inferiorly or superiorly as involvement as well along with the femur neck. Now type 4 is actually associated with femoral head fractures and along with acetabular fractures. Remember the Epstein-Thompson classification for the posterior hip dislocation. The type 5 was actually the same as along with this type 4 Kripken is the same thing. It's actually acetabular fractures associated with femoral head fractures, and they're leading to posterior hip dislocation. Now coming to the treatment. Now treatment depends upon the type of injury it is. It's the type 1, 2, 3 or it's 4. Type 1, the fragment is small, and as it is in the non-weight bearing area, it can be excised. But if it is large, it can be simply fixed with a screw. Now type 2, you cannot just take it out because the problem is it's above the fovea capitis and involving the weight bearing area. So it has to be reduced by open reduction internal fixation. Now coming to the type 3, which is associated with femoral neck fractures. Neck takes the preference. First you fix the neck, and then depending upon whether it's below or above, what type of fixation for the femoral head is required. But the type 3 also requires fixation. Now type 4, this is associated with posterior hip dislocation. First you need to reduce the joint, see if it is a congruent dislocation, and then fix the head fracture as well as the acetabular fractures. They were usually associated with a combinated acetabular wall fractures posteriorly. Now what type of a complication, despite prompt reduction, early fixation, what can still result in? Almost in 50% of the cases, still patient can present later on with osteoarthritis, or there could be avian or osteonecrosis of the femoral head. There could be associated with sciatic nerve palsy, especially if in the case of type Kripken type 4, in which there is posterior hip dislocation as well. There may be a fracture malreduction, or later on there may be slippage of this fracture, or fracture non-union, or there may be heterotropic ossification as well. As you know, this is usually mostly in the case of if it's children, we have to go for use of K wires, and there is always chance that this can later on fragment can position later on, leading to malunited or malreduced fracture. There will be sometimes patients post-operatively 4 months, 6 months, there's excessive myositis ossificans, hydropic ossification around the hip joint, which some people are actually more prone to this problem, especially after the surgical intervention. Now coming to the anterior dislocation. As I told you, depending upon what was the position of the leg or the femur at the time of injury, that will determine whether it was anterior or posterior hip dislocation. It's although rare, only approximately 10 to 20% of the cases. The usual mechanism is always high energy trauma, more commonly associated with the femoral head fractures. It can be subclassified into two types. That is the superior one. If you see it over here, again the shuntal line is broken. And if you see this could be inferior going into the obturator foramen, or superior, which is lying above the superior pubic ramus or suprapubic. Now, the usual mechanism in this case is the leg is extended, it's abducted, and it's an external rotation at the time of injury, which results in anterior hip dislocation. Now coming to the clinical features, leg will always be externally rotated, although abducted and slightly flexed, but there will be no shortening of the leg as compared to posterior hip dislocation. Leg may be abducted almost to a right angle, but a patient will try to make itself comfortable. And by abducting leg at a very large angle, let's say 70, 80 and 90 degrees, that actually helps to ease out the pain. If seen from the side, anterior bulge of the dislocated head may be visible, but if the patient is too obese, that there are a lot of muscle mass, usually this may not be visible. But in a thin, lean patient with a small muscle mass, even straight away the head can be palpated in the anteriorly over the thigh aspect or groin area, especially when the head is moved anteriorly and superiorly. Now coming to the x-rays, the first thing you need to get is an x-ray pelvis AP view with both hip joints. And if you can appreciate over here, the leg is lying and abducted in external rotated position. Then again, shuntal line is broken on the left side, and this looks like an obturator or inferior anterior dislocation, in which this head is going into a buttonhole into the obturator foramen. Now, the management, the principles of management, whether it's anterior or posterior dislocation, is the same. We have to treat this patient as per ATLS protocols, provided this is an isolated injury and patient is hemodynamically stable. Then whether if this is the isolated dislocation, then we have to go for close reduction as early as possible, and it's called as emergent close reduction. Now, maneuver for anterior hip dislocation is different as compared to posterior hip dislocation because the mechanism is different. Reduction of anterior hip dislocation is relatively more difficult, but it's very much easily possible. Performed as soon as possible, that remains the same. Emergent reduction as early as possible under the GA. Preferably GA because the muscles are relaxed, and the muscles in the hip, sometimes you have to apply a lot of force to reduce the hip joint. Now coming to the maneuver for needed for close reduction is first there are two people. The patient is lying in the supine position as with the posterior hip dislocation, but at that time the knee and hip was flexed 90 degrees. Here you don't need to flex it. You need to extend the knee, apply longitudinal traction as much as possible. The assistant will help you will wrap a sheet around the thigh and will try to push the head out laterally. This is the kind of a force, as if the other option is, if still unsuccessful, you can apply a screw towards the greater troch and use that to actually push it out. But that is actually, you have to apply the lateral as well as longitudinal force. That is what must be remembered. Factory leg is held in external rotation, abduction and flexion. Leg is gently internally externally rotated. Now, why is this done? Once the traction has been applied by both the people, the one who is doing the reduction will actually take a hold of the foot of the patient, or from the ankle, will first internally rotate and then externally rotate like this. Now, why this done is actually the head may be buttonholed into the muscles. So by internally externally rotating, actually it comes out of that and it reduces it by a large clunk. And palpable or even audible clunk can be heard or felt as well. In this section, we have briefly gone through the two important things. One is the anterior hip dislocation and the second is the femoral head fractures. Femoral head fractures are always associated with high energy trauma and most commonly with the posterior hip dislocation. There is a classification for femoral head fractures called as the Pipkin classification. Pipkin type 1 is a fracture below the fovea, not involving the weight-bearing area. Type 2 is a large fragment above the fovea involving the weight-bearing area. Type 3 is it could be infrafovea or a suprafovea level fracture associated with the femoral neck fractures. And type 4 is Thompson and Epstein type 5 or Pipkin type 4 is the same thing because it's actually the acetabular fracture associated with the femoral head fractures. What is important is only in type, almost all require reduction as well as open reduction tunnel fixation. But sometimes in type 1, there could be a small fragment not around the weight-bearing area which can be simply taken out. But usually, if it's type 2, it requires ORIF. It's type 3, need to fix neck first and then think of the head fracture. In type 4, we are to fix the head as well as the acetabular wall. Especially if it is posterior acetabular wall, there may be a comminuted fracture as well. Now coming to the anterior dislocation, it usually occurs if the patient has suffered a trauma when the leg was extended, externally rotated and abducted. And this usually has two subtypes. It is superior or pubic type or inferior obturator type. The method and the principles for both, whether it's anterior or posterior dislocation, remains the same. As per ATLS guidelines, you have to treat the patient, not the dislocation. And if everything else is okay and the patient is hemodynamically stable and this appears to be an isolated anterior hip dislocation, then only you can take the patient to operating table. Under GA, once the muscle relax, we can close reduction of the anterior hip dislocation can be attempted. The one who is actually reducing it applies the longitudinal traction. There's an assistant who's applying the lateral traction, and then by internal external rotating the ankle joint, actually the reduces, takes out the femoral head out of the buttonhole, which has buttonholed into the muscle mass, and there may be an audible or palpable clunk which would be heard or felt. And once that is there, the check x-rays can be taken and the OT if the fluoroscope is available, and later on the x-rays and CT scan may be required as well to make sure that there is concentric reduction and not associated with femoral head fractures. Thank you very much. Keep watching sqadia.com.